There are 1.6 million people in the United States right now who have been legally ordered to leave but are still here.
Mm-hmm.
And that number, that is just the tip of the iceberg.
It really is. It's Friday, February 13th, 2026. And honestly, if you were watching the Senate Homeland Security Committee hearings today,
Oh, yeah.
the testimony from acting IC Director Todd Lyons, it felt like a bucket of cold water.
It was a massive wake-up call. We are diving deep today into the non-detained docket, and frankly, the numbers Lyons dropped are just... They're hard to reconcile with what you think immigration enforcement looks like.
Yep, absolutely.
He confirmed ICE is tracking 1.6 million immigrants with final deportation orders.
And final is the key word there. It's so important. We aren't talking about people waiting for a court date.
Right.
We are talking about people where a judge has already banged the gavel and said, you have to go. But they're still here.
And there was another number there that really jumped out.
The criminality component, yeah.
Yeah.
Lyons stated that out of those 1.6 million, approximately 800,000 have criminal convictions.
That is just a staggering number. Nearly 1 million people with criminal records who've been told to leave the country but haven't. And this testimony lands on a really weird day for enforcement news, doesn't it?
It does, because literally hours ago, Border Czar Tom Homan announced the end of Operation Metro Surge up in Minnesota.
Right, the big crackdown.
That was the targeted operation in Minneapolis-St. Paul. They arrested, over 4,000 people since December?
And Homan basically declared mission accomplished today. He said they made Minnesota less of a sanctuary state.
He did.
But that's the tension, right? That's what I want to explore today. You have this victory lap in Minnesota, 4,000 arrests.
Which sounds like a lot.
It does. But then you put it against the backdrop of this testimony.
Yeah.
1.6 million people nationwide. It feels like we're looking at two different realities.
Exactly. And to understand how those two realities can coexist, you have to look at the bigger picture, the whole mechanism.
It's not about one surge operation.
No. It's about what experts and researchers are calling the non-detained docket.
Which, I gotta say, sounds like the most boring administrative term imaginable.
It really does. It sounds like a stack of paperwork on some dusty desk somewhere.
Yeah.
But one of the key sources we're looking at today, a researcher named Austin Kocher, he describes it very differently. He calls it Terra Incognita.
Latin for unknown land.
Right. Like on those old maps,
Right.
where the edges were just blank spaces or had drawings of sea monsters because nobody knew what was actually there.
And he's saying this docket is that uncharted territory.
That's his argument. It's the uncharted territory of the U.S. immigration system, and the scale of it is, well, it's just hard to wrap your head around.
Okay, so let's try. Let's map this territory. When we say non-detained docket, I think most people assume you're either in a detention center or you've been deported.
That's the binary way we usually talk about it, right? Locked up or kicked out.
But this is the third option.
It's everyone else.
Yeah.
The third bucket. It includes people waiting for a trial, people seeking asylum who are allowed to stay while their case is pending.
And crucially,
Those people who have already been ordered to leave but haven't left yet.
So what's the total headcount?
As of today, the total population on this docket is approximately 7 million people.
Wait, say that again?
7 million.
7 million. I can't even visualize that.
Well, to put it in perspective, that population is larger than the individual populations of 36 different U.S. states.
36 states.
Yeah. If the non-detained docket were its own state, it would be bigger than Missouri, bigger than Maryland, bigger than Wisconsin.
That is a massive demographic footprint. So the obvious question is supervision. If they aren't in a cell, are they being watched? Are they checking in?
And that brings us right back to that Terra Incognita idea. We all have this assumption that the government has a sort of big brother eye on everyone in the system.
You'd think so.
But the reality is much, much looser. Most of these 7 million people are not in detention, obviously. But, and this is the key finding from Kocher's research, most of them are not even enrolled in a formal supervision program.
Wait, what does formal supervision even mean? No parole officer.
Basically, for a huge chunk of this population, they are effectively off the radar. They might have bond conditions that just say, don't commit a crime, or
what?
Or they might rely on an officer's discretion to check in, I don't know, maybe once a year. But they are living in our communities in what the sources describe as a bureaucratic limbo.
That sounds less like a system and more like a waiting room that no one is managing.
And the experts point out that this is a structural feature, not just a temporary bug.
It's built this way.
It's built this way because it has to be. It doesn't matter how tough an administration talks. The U.S. government simply does not have the capacity to detain 7 million people.
There just aren't enough beds.
Not enough beds, not enough guards, and certainly not enough money.
So, okay, we have this population the size of a small country living here with very little oversight. But I want to circle back to that first number, the one from the Senate testimony.
The 1.6 million.
Yeah. The 1.6 million with final removal orders, this is the part I think you really need to explain. If a federal judge has ruled you have to leave, why are you still here?
It's the central paradox of the entire system. You have a legal order that says go, but reality says stay.
And there are reasons for that.
Two main obstacles that cause this paralysis. The first is it's diplomatic. It's what IC calls the uncooperative list.
Uncooperative. That feels like a very polite euphemism.
It is a very polite way of saying stonewalling. You have to remember, deportation is a two-way street. The U.S. can put someone on a plane.
But the other country has to let them land.
They have to agree to take the person back. They have to issue travel documents, verify citizenship, all of it.
And if they don't?
Then the plane never takes off.
Right.
If the receiving country refuses to issue a passport or just says, nope, we don't believe this person is ours, IC physically cannot execute the order. You can't just, push someone out of a plane with a parachute.
So who are the countries saying no?
It's a who's who of geopolitical rivals, really. As of late 2024 and into this year, ICR has classified 15 countries as uncooperative.
And the list includes
China, Russia, India, Venezuela, Cuba, and Iran.
Wow. That's a significant list. I mean, China and Russia are our biggest adversaries on the world stage.
Exactly. And it creates this complete stalemate. If a Chinese national has a final deportation order, but Beijing refuses to issue a travel document, which they often do as a form of diplomatic leverage, that person stays in the U.S. indefinitely. ICE has nowhere to send them.
So foreign governments are effectively deciding who gets to stay in the U.S. by just refusing to answer the phone.
That's a pretty good way to put it. They hold the veto power over our deportation orders.
Okay, so that's obstacle one. What's the other?
The second obstacle is domestic. It's a legal concept. It's called withholding of removal or protection under the Convention Against Torture. Lawyers just call it CCAT.
Okay, I've heard this term thrown around. Unpack what that actually means in practice.
Sure. So imagine someone goes through the whole immigration court system. They apply for asylum. They lose. The judge says, sorry, you don't qualify. You have a removal order.
So legally, they're done. End of the road.
Legally, they are ordered removed. However, if that person can then prove that they would be tortured or persecuted if they were sent back to their specific home country,
then what?
Then the U.S. government is bound by international treaty and our own laws not to send them there.
So the removal order exists, but it's frozen.
Precisely. It becomes what some legal scholars call a zombie order. It's final, but it can't be executed.
So what status do they have?
They don't get a green card. They don't get permanent status. They usually can't bring family members over. But they also can't be sent home. They just exist in that Terra Incognita.
This just seems like a massive, massive gap in enforcement. If we can't detain 7 million people and we can't deport 1.6 million of them, how do we keep track of them? Are we just hoping they promise to be good?
Well, this is where the pivot happens. Since we can't use bricks and mortar, the government has turned to silicon. This brings us to the Alternatives to Detention Program, or ATD.
Alternatives to detention. Sounds like the bureaucratic solution to the bed shortage you mentioned.
It is exactly that. The main program is called ISAP, the Intensive Supervision Appearance Program. Since we can't afford to lock everyone up, we use tech to watch them.
I've seen the ankle monitors in the news.
And that's part of it, sure. You still have GPS, ankle, or wrist monitors for physical tracking. But those are actually becoming less common compared to the new favorite tool, an app called SmartLink.
SmartLink. It sounds like something that controls my thermostat.
It's a smartphone app for case management. The person has to check in periodically. It uses facial recognition to prove they are who they say they are, and GPS tagging to prove they are where they say they are.
Okay, but hold on. An ankle monitor is strapped to your body. A smartphone. You can leave that on the kitchen counter while you drive 3 states away?
You can.
So why is the government leaning so hard on an app?
2 big reasons. First, scalability. You can put an app on millions of phones way easier than you can strap monitors on millions of legs.
Okay, that makes sense.
But the main driver, money.
Yeah.
It's plain and simple economics.
Will be the breakdown.
Okay. According to the data, Physical detention in a facility costs taxpayers about $150 per day per person.
$150 a day. Multiply that by 7 million. The math is impossible.
Exactly. It would bankrupt the Department of Homeland Security in a week. Now compare that to ATD technology.
What's that cost?
The daily cost for tech monitoring is less than $8 per day.
$8 versus $150.
It's a total no-brainer for the accountants.
Yes.
It creates this interesting dynamic where you have advocacy groups like the American Immigration Council pushing for this because it's cheaper and keeps people out of jail.
And on the other side,
You have security hawks arguing that an app is a complete joke.
because if you really want to disappear, you just turn the phone off.
Or break it. Or just ignore it. And remember, not everyone even gets the app. Supervision is case by case. If someone is pregnant or has a severe medical condition, ICE guidance often suggests removing GPS monitors entirely.
So the supervision level varies wildly.
From person to person, yes.
Which brings us right back to the safety question we started with. We have 800,000 people on this docket with criminal convictions. If the supervision is this loose, an app here, a check in there, how do we handle the bad actors?
That is the enforcement challenge of the decade. And it explains why things like Operation Metro Surge in Minnesota happen. Because the docket is so huge, enforcement becomes a game of whack-a-mole.
So instead of trying to manage all 7 million, they just pick a spot and surge.
Exactly. ICE went into Minneapolis and St. Paul specifically looking for people with criminal records or final orders. They arrested 4,000 people. That sounds like a lot. It is a lot for one city.
But when you compare 4,000 to the 7 million total,
It's a drop in the bucket.
it's a rounding error.
It really is. It illustrates that you can surge resources to one city and clear out a few thousand people, but the broader docket remains massive, and the diversity of that docket complicates things even more.
I was looking at that breakdown by nationality in the data. It really challenges the stereotype that this is just a southern border issue.
It completely shatters it. Look, the numbers from the hemisphere are high, over 250,000 from Mexico, over 200,000 from El Salvador. You expect that.
Sure.
But look further down the list.
I see nearly 38,000 people from China with final removal orders.
38,000, that's a small city.
And over 17,000 from India.
Right. When you see thousands of nationals from India, China, Russia, Brazil, you realize that the non-detained docket isn't just about border crossings. It's a global visa overstay issue. It's a cross-section of the entire world living in this administrative limbo.
It's just overwhelming when you see the data laid out like this. You've got the diplomatic standoffs, the legal loopholes, the sheer volume of people. It feels like the system has completely outgrown its own infrastructure.
Overwhelmed is probably the right word. If we try to summarize what we've uncovered in the sources today, we're basically looking at 3 distinct buckets of people within the 7 million.
Okay, let's recap them. Bucket 1 is the Terra Incognita group.
The unmonitored majority. The people who aren't in jail, aren't on an app, and are just living in that blank space on the map, they are the ones truly off the radar.
Bucket 2 is the ATD group.
Yep, the people on SmartLink or GPS. We know where they are, mostly, and it costs us about $8 a day to watch them.
And bucket 3 is the 1.6 million we started with.
The people with final orders. The ones who have been told to leave but are stuck here because of diplomacy with countries like China and Russia, or because of legal protections like CET.
So what does this all mean for the listener? I mean, we've got a new administration in 2026 trying to crack down, clearly given the Minnesota operation. But the math seems, well, it seems impossible.
That is the so what here. We're mapping a system that is operating way beyond its design limits. For years, the political debate has been binary. Detention versus release. Should we lock them up or let them go?
But the reality is this massive third category.
Exactly. The reality is limbo. We have created a permanent population of people who are legally ordered to leave but physically remain. And that forces us to ask a really uncomfortable question about the rule of law.
Which is?
If a judge's order doesn't actually result in anything happening, does the order even matter?
That's a heavy question.
It is. If no administration can physically detain 7 million people, and if our foreign adversaries can simply refuse to take their citizens back, is the very concept of a final removal order becoming obsolete? And if millions of people can ignore a final legal order with no consequence, what does that say about the authority of the U.S. legal system in 2026?
That is a provocative thought to end on, but I think it's the right one. We were looking at a system that is, well, it's operating in uncharted territory.
Absolutely. Terra Incognita.
Thanks for diving deep with us today. We'll catch you on the next one.